Welcome to the second season of Your Money Matters. I think we had a good first season. It was a good kickoff, sharing with people what we do and how we try to help our members and guests of St. Stephen Baptist Church. We want you to be more financially literate. We want you to look for business and education opportunities. We truly want you to change how you think about money. We want you to understand the power of being credit worthy. The difference between a 500 credit rating, a 600 credit rating, and a 700 credit rating. And finally, just as important as anything, is how to get away from financial slavery, and that's debt. We want our people to be able to do the things they want to do, to purchase the things they want to purchase, and to one day be in a position where you can leave some money to your children, where we can stop this chain of living paycheck to paycheck. Do you realize that even prior to the pandemic, 79% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck? So what would happen to you if by coincidence you didn't get a paycheck next week? How devastating would that be? So we're going to talk about the 10 principles of what to do in order to help you in 2021. Now let me share with you. These principles were also important in 2020 and 2019, but we want to make sure that we go over them again, that we can help you with your money. There have been occasions since we started Money Matters where I've been approached on the street or by phone where people say, George, that was great information. George, can you help me? George, I really need your help. Well, helping your financial literacy starts with understanding that you need to change. Whatever habits that you have that are stopping you from being the person that you want to be, for being the father, mother, uncle, aunt, grandparent that you want to be for your children, it all starts with how you think and how to make changes. You will not lose money and lose weight until you decide, you know, I'm going to leave that second piece of cake alone. You won't do anything that requires change until one day you'll tell yourself, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. So let me tell you some of the principles, some of the things that we need to do, that you need to do, that we all need to do, that help us with our money starting today. Number one, create a budget. I was just talking to a person on staff just a few minutes ago, and they said, you know, I just hate budgets. I just don't like setting budgets. I said, in order to control your money, you've got to know where your money's going. You've got to write it down. You got to go take a month and write where you spend your money. You've got to understand what your net income is. You've got to understand what all your expenses are, and you've got to understand where you spend your extra money. It all starts with budgets and how to budget. So, tell you what we're going to do. Before we even get to number two, we're going to spend some time on budgeting. I said, well, this season, rather than me just say, create a budget, I am going to give you examples of how to create a budget. There are so many apps and websites that you can go to in order to create a budget. Now, let me tell you what a budget is. A budget is a plan, a goal. And a plan or a goal is only a dream unless it's written on paper. Write it down. Look at it. understand it. First of all, we're going to start with a budget of a household income of around $41,000. Now, there's a reason that I chose $41,000 because according to the latest statistic, the average income of African Americans in this country is $41,000. So I decided to say, okay, what can we do with that? How can we do what we need to do with that amount of money? Well, first of all, in creating a budget, and this is something straight from Dave Ramsey. I love a lot of his principles, so I got to give him credit for this. It's called your four walls. Your four walls have got to be taken care of no matter what income level you're in, no matter where you are, whether it's 40,000, 60,000, 80,000 or above. And let me also say this about income levels. People live paycheck to paycheck, a bunch of them even who make well over 6 figures a year. It's not what you do with not how much money you make, it's how you handle your money. So let's look at a $41,000 gross income. That's about, give or take a few $100, about $3,000 net per month. Now, in that area of income, your taxes, I'd say, would be less than 20%, somewhere between 15 and 20%. So I took this at about 83 to 84% of your gross income. That came to approximately about $3,000 a month. So now I've created a budget. You write it down. I have 3,000 in one column. The next column, I list all of my expenses, and that way I can look at it and see where I am. I got on here $1,000 for rent, right? $175 for utilities. Now, remember, this is a budget. Some months, depending on where you live, some months may be 100 and 120. Some months may be as high in the 200s. But I'm averaging about $175 a month for utilities. Number two, food. I just had a person a second ago that said, oh, George, I spent so much money on food, burgers and things. I said, well, nothing wrong with spending money on food. Food is a part of the four walls that have to be covered. So I budgeted, I have in a budget, $260 a month on food, give or take. So tell you how I calculated that. That's about $60 a week times 52 weeks. We'll do it here. Hold on. 60 times 50. Because what I'm doing, you guys can do too. If my phone would work. That's about $3,100 a year divided by 12 months. That's where I got the $260 a month for food. If you spend $70 a week for food, you know where to go, or it could be $100 a week. But just for the sake of budgeting, I got $260 there. Transportation is usually the second most expensive thing on your budget. For transportation, I have $450. Now, let me tell you how we got to there. If the average cost of a used car today is $20,000, and because you have a gross income of 41, I use $15,000 because you can buy a car that can get you around that doesn't look so bad for $15,000. For that, with a $3,000 down payment, let's say it's income tax time now, and you know you need to buy a new car. So you put $3,000 down at a 6% interest rate, because usually interest rates are a little higher when you borrow a smaller amount of money, no matter what your credit rating is. At 48 months, try your best not to extend buying a car, especially a used car, beyond 48 months. That payment is about $253 a month. Well, you take your $253, because we're budgeting, right? How much do you spend on gas? If you spend about $30 a week in gas, it could be less, it could be more, that's an average. That's about $130 a month just for gas. And you also have to consider your insurance. Depending on the kind of coverage you have and the company that you use, I used about $750 to $800 a year for insurance. That's another $60 to $70 a month. That's how I came to the $450 for transportation. So, the four walls. You have your rent, you have utilities, you have food, and you have transportation. Of that $3,000 net income, right at about $1,900, $1,885 goes to your four walls. You see what you mean when you write it down and you can see it? 63% of your net income is going to things that you gotta pay. You gotta have a roof over your head, you gotta have food, you gotta pay utilities, and you gotta get home and work, you gotta have some kind of transportation. Well, what other things need to come out of that? I put $300 in here for debt service. The average American household has $8,000 in credit card debt. Credit card debt is the worst, is some of, other than these pay here kind of locations that you can just, where you can take your check, those interest rates on those people, they are predators. Stay away from them. But credit card debt, other than that, is the worst kind of credit that you can have. Listen to me on this. The average interest rate on credit cards is 16%. That's the average interest rate. If you have $8,000 in credit card debt and you paid $200 a month, it would take you 5 years to pay $8,000. 5 years. If you were going to pay $300 a month, that 5 years turns into 3 years, because now you're putting another extra $100 a month toward your principal. And if you could have paid $400 a month, that 5 years turns into 2 years. So remember, what can you do? What extra money can you put on your credit cards to get them paid off as quickly as you can? As a matter of fact, the second principle, remember the first principle was about budgeting. The second principle is don't use credit cards. When you do, use them for needs and not wants. Do not use credit cards just because you saw the G.I. Joe with a Kung Fu grip that you like. Don't do that. Use credit cards for things that you need, that you gotta have. If something happens to something in your home and you don't have the cash, only for emergencies. Other than that, if you use them, please pay them off the month during that cycle, because when you do that, you don't pay any interest. So in our budget, I have $300 in for debt service. Could be more, could be less. I have $100 in per month for medical expenses. I have another $145 a month for clothes, toiletries. another $120 a month for maintenance, because you never know what kind of maintenance issue you may have, maybe with your car. I have $200 a month in for savings and investment. They're the same, but they're not. The problem with what happened in this pandemic is that very few people had any emergency funds. They just didn't have it. They didn't have emergency funds. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you save. So $200 went in for savings and investment. $100 goes in for building an emergency fund every month. The other $100 goes in for things like investments. And you can do it. I'm telling you, you can do it for $100 a month. There are certain brokerages, TD Ameritrade, for an example, where you can set an account up where 50 to 100 bucks goes in to buy any stocks or mutual funds that you want to buy, and you won't even touch the money. So you want to save money for an emergency fund in one pot, and then you want to save money for long-term investments in the other pot. So save money every month. Don't spend it. I call that paying yourself. If you can pay the federal government between 15 and 20% before you see your money, you can pay yourself $200 if you make this kind of money, all right, $200 to help you for a rainy day. Reverend Cosby last week in his Powerful Points to Ponder talked about what to do during a storm. And many times, if you prepare for a storm, you can get through a storm. Next, I have $200 a month in recreation. Now, that's not a lot. That's only about $50 a week. But remember, what we're trying to do is build on our finances, helping ourselves to be more financially literate, making it so we're not so dependent on an employer. And finally, always give some money to the church. We at St. Stephen Baptist Church, we talk about the importance of tithing and being a consistent giver. But what's more important is that you give something. You don't have to be a giver to be a member. We're just happy that you're members. But giving a little to the church, no matter how much money you make, can one day, I'm telling you, you will see a benefit far beyond that you could have imagined. So I have $150 in here a month for church, which is only about 5% of your net income. Only about 5%. We're going, as your money grows, we can teach you how to get it up to where you're getting to 10%, where you can save your money and give to the church as well. But it is important. We understand that you will be able to be even better stewards of your church when we help you get out of debt first. And now we have truly a healthy congregation. So now let's look at it. Someone who makes a little more money. The average income of non-African Americans in this country is $61,000 a year. I want everybody here to set a goal this year. What can you do to get your income up to $61,000 a year? There are a lot of opportunities out there, education opportunities, things that you can do to learn a different trade that make far beyond that amount of money. You got to get to the point when you say, I am sick and tired of not doing the things that I want to do and I want to do with my family and my children. So let me tell you what a budget looks like if you have an income of $61,000 a year. That's around $4,100 a month net. Now we can get a mortgage. Now you're in a position to buy a house. Now let me tell you something about homes these days, because I looked it up. You can buy a house with 3% down. You can. And your credit number, now I'm a person that's gonna push you to say, get that credit number this year up to 700. There's techniques and ways to do it. I can help you to do that. We want your credit number over 700. I was sharing with a person, again, not so long ago, that a person with a credit number of 720 and a person who has a credit number of 820, they both can do about the same things. When you have a number that's 700 or above, I'm telling you, your money, you won't pay as much for your money. We're going to talk about that all year too. I'm going to spend a little more time on it today. So, now, as far as budgets are concerned, if you want to buy a house, and the house is $200,000, and you put down 3%, with closing costs and everything else that you have to pay, you'd have to finance about $195,000. At $195,000, at 3% down, at a 3.5% interest rate, which is a doable interest rate, your payment, which includes your insurance, your taxes, and you'll have to pay a PMI, it's a mortgage insurance, is only $1,300 a month. There's a lot of places you can't rent for $1,300 a month. And you can buy, I'm telling you, you can buy a $200,000 house. And if you go to the right folks, we do a lot with Park Community Federal Credit Union. They will give you a loan if your credit number is 580. But there's a lot of folks who will give you a loan at a credit that's 620. So you got a $1,300, let's talk about this budget. Our time's running slow, but I want you to know this is how you can do it when you write it down and look at it. The budget is $1,300 for the mortgage. It's $200 in for utilities. It's $300 for food, and it's $553 for transportation. Because when you make a little more, you can pay a little more for a car. I'm a person that says buy a used car. A brand new car, the average cost of a brand new car, and auto dealers don't get mad at me, but it's true. The average cost of a brand new car this year is $41,000. People are financing these cars. They're financing $35K on an average. Even at a competitive interest rate, they're financing those cars for 72 months and paying almost $600 a month for a car. That takes a whole bunch of your budget. And that doesn't count gas and insurance. There's 553 includes gas and insurance. So that's $2,353. That's 57% of your net income. 53%. Then I have $300 for debt service, $100 for medical, $200 for clothing and toiletries, $200 for maintenance. On this one, I have $400 for savings, because I'm going to push people to save at least of their net income, to save 10% of their net income. I want you to take some of your income and pay off your debt. I want you to take some of your income and save, because there will be a rainy day. $250 for recreation, and between $300 and $400 for your church. That the more money that you make And the more that you pay off your debt, the more you can look back and give back. But we want you to be healthy financially. So, this is what you do. You can look online. You can find apps that can help you. NerdWallet has a good app. It's a few companies that just have good apps that you can use to budget. So this year, before we go into anything else as it relates to your money and your money matters, we're going to talk about and continue to talk about how you budget. We want you to write it down, things that you spend. We want you to know where your money goes. We want you to pay yourself first every paycheck, because trust me, there will be a rainy day. And finally, never forget your church. You can always give something back to your church. This is what we do at St. Stephen Baptist Church. We want to help you in every area of your life. So in weeks to come, we're going to have people that come in to talk about insurances. We're going to talk about taxes. We're going to spend some time on Social Security. I mean, should I take my Social Security at 62 or should I wait to 66? I think it just depends on the individual. We're going to talk about all kinds of investments, from the stock market to mutual funds to ETFs, everything related to how to make money. So, I am happy again to talk to everybody. Thank you for being a part of Money Matters. Look, I created my own template here. So if you want to create your own, just go and set it up in Excel. Write down what you spend and control your money. Have a good day. Thank you.